This article is called India's Dying Mother. I am going to read each section for you, but I'd like you to pause the video at different points and record your what you're surprised about on your paper. You also might want to pause the video and look up the unknown words. It's probably a good idea to have this same website pulled up in another tab so that you can pause and look up the unknown words as needed. So follow along with me as I read our introduction of India's Dying Mother. The Ganges is one of the greatest rivers on earth, but it is dying. From the icy Himalayan peaks where it begins, right down to the Bay of Bengal, it is slowly poisoned. The Ganges is revered in India, but it is also the sewer that carries away the waste from the 450 million people who live in its catchment area. Pollution from the factories and farms of the fastest growing large economy in the world, and from the riverside cremation of Hindu true believers, has turned its waters toxic. The Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, promised 2 years ago to clean up the Ganges, but can he do it? Can the sacred mother of Hinduism be saved? As I scroll through these pictures, I want you to notice the path of the Ganges River. Now notice these cities that are placed along the river who are exposed to the polluted water. And this picture highlights that catchment area, all of the people who are exposed to that water and who contribute to the waste in the Ganges River. I'm going to go ahead and go on and read section 1. So make a new heading on your paper. This section is called the Swami. The source of the Ganges lies among the soaring, snow-clad peaks of the Himalayas. As a rose-pink dawn rises over the jagged teeth of the mountains, the valley where the river begins remains in deep shadow. It takes hours for the sun to scale the great crags. Only then does a single shaft of sunlight finally penetrate into the chasm. It strikes a glacier called Gangotri, suddenly illuminating its cloudy blue and white depths. It is easy to understand why this is one of the most sacred sites in all of Hinduism. Up here in the cold, fresh air, the great shimmering body of frozen water appears radiantly pure. And here's a picture when the Ganges begins. At the foot of the glacier, there is a cave in the ice. This is Gaumukha, the cow's mouth, and the chuckling stream of crystal clear icy water that emerges from it is the beginning of the Ganges. Ma Ganga, it is known in Hindi, Mother Ganges. It's an apt name. The Ganges has nurtured and supported the rise of Indian civilization. As the stream snakes down from the mountains, it gathers pace and volume, joined by hundreds of others bringing the snowmelt from the vast Himalayan watershed. But studies show that even here in the Himalayas, the water is becoming increasingly polluted. And the further you descend, the more pronounced the legendary river's problems become. In the holy city of Rishikesh, Swami Chinand Sarwasi is leading the evening arati, a Hindu fire ceremony. Here you can see the path of where the Ganges begins in the Himalayas. This is the town that they're speaking of here now for the fire ceremony. He is irrepressibly cheerful man. The flickering light of the butter candles he circles in front of him twinkle in his eyes as he chants and sings along with the music. About 50 monks take part, watched by a couple of hundred devotees. This river, Aratis, are a celebration of the Ganges. A similar ritual is performed in towns and villages all along the 2,500 kilometer long river. That's 1,500 miles. All day pilgrims have been descending to the water to bathe, part of an ancient ritual of purification. Hindus revere the Ganges as a god. They believe she came down from heaven to cleanse the earth, and that bathing in her waters can wash away a person's sins. The Swami has built the ashram into a huge enterprise. He glances down modestly when I ask how many followers he has. Perhaps 1 million, he replies, but his demeanor changes when I ask about pollution in the river. His brow furrows. Too many people think the Ganges not only purifies sin, but also has the power to cleanse itself, he says. So they believe that even though the water's polluted, that they think it can purify itself since it's a god. Sitting here by the Ganga, I can tell you, before we take a bath in the Ganga, we need to give Ganga a bath. People think Ganga can take care of my sins, can take care of anything. And they forget that while Ganga can take care of your sins, it cannot take care of your waste, of your pollution. Here's the man they're speaking to right now in the article. Campaigning for a serious effort to clean the river, he says, occupies most of his time. He is in no doubt that India is killing the Ganges, killing its own mother, he says, and he is determined to save her. For me, if Ganga dies, India dies. If Ganga thrives, India thrives. The Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, a Hindu nationalist, also sees cleaning up the Ganges as nothing less than a mission from God. "Ma Ganga has called me," he told the crowd at his victory celebration when he was swept to power in a landslide victory 2 years ago. "She has decided some responsibilities for me. Ma Ganga is screaming for help. She is saying, I hope one of my sons gets me out of this filth," he said. "It is possible it has been decided by God for me to serve Ma Ganga." He has pledged serious money to his Clean Ganga mission, more than 3 billion over 5 years. I think that's billion, 3 million over 5 years. Quite deliberately, he has chosen this as one of his signature projects, knowing this is symbolic of an even bigger challenge, India's effort to lift its people out of poverty and to become a modern world power. Previous Indian leaders launched similar initiatives. In the 1980s, Rajiv Gandhi began a huge program of public works, building sewers and water treatment plants, for example. But they didn't solve the problem. In fact, the Ganges has steadily become more and more polluted. So what can be done? Okay, I'm going to end here, and this ends section 1. Section 2 is called The Campaigner, and that video will start next.